What is up? My name is Yukabeth. This is God is Everything podcast. I low-key want to change the title because I feel like it's a mouthful. But then, like, when you really think about it, God really is everything. And we talk about how He is involved in everything that has to do with you and me. So maybe I'll just keep it, but I don't know. But anyways, the holidays are around the corner. Blessings are around the like fall. I don't know, something about fall, winter, the holidays. To me, like, it's just one of my favorite times of the year, just because it allows me to just sit in everything, sit in the good things that has happened this year, sit in the bad things. It allows me to just like reflect. It allows me to be grateful. Like, it's just, so I'm excited. I am. Actually, I would say spring is my favorite time of the year, and then fall. But anyways, I'm just really I'm just very, how do I say it? I'm calm, if that makes sense. This year has made me very calm, and I might make a video of everything that I've learned this year or not. But this year I'm just very calm, but in a place of like, I'm calm because I'm at peace, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like that's another video. That's another video for another day. Today, we are talking about the wounds of insecurity. The wounds of insecurity. And it's so crazy. I actually got this message yesterday. I was doing my devotional and I was reading this story, and like, it's crazy because I just never saw this message from this story. And so I was like, I gotta share this. Like, this is something worth sharing. The story that we're gonna cover is found in 2 Samuel chapter 10. And it's a story that's not really common, but it's a good story. There's a lesson here. So it starts with the king of the Ammonites dying, right? And once he dies, his son becomes new king. So David, he's like, you know what? His father was kind to me. His father showed favor to me. So let me send some of my men to go express my condolences, to go, pass on my sympathy to the family. So David sends his men, and when his men get to, the land of the Ammonites, the people who advise the king, so the Bible calls them the noble men, they start to advise the king, and they're like, oh, in verse 3, the Bible says the the Ammonite nobles said to Hanan their lord, do you think David is honoring your father by sending men to you to express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them to you to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So Hanan, the Bible says in verse 4, he sees David's men, shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their garments in the middle of the buttocks, and sent them away. And let's just say after this happens, they go to war, another nation is involved, it just gets messy, people die, but this could have been avoided. And why this story is so important, why the story talks about the consequences of having wounds of insecurity. These men, these noble men that were advising the king, they were insecure, right? They were insecure because their king has just died and his son has just taken charge. And instead of accepting the kindness of David, embracing the man that he has sent over to them as a sign of kindness, as a sign of alliance, they humiliate these men. And one thing about David, he does not play like that. So if you read the whole chapter, you see what happens. Now, the lesson we get from here is there's some of us who have wounds of insecurities. Like, you could be a confident person overall, but there's a wound, there's an open wound on you, or a couple open wounds. And the thing about open wounds, no matter what touches it, it could be water, it could be anything, it hurts, it stings because it's exposed, right? If somebody brings up that thing that you're insecure about, it triggers you. You go into defense mode. It makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you feel less than. And the thing about having insecure wounds, insecurities lie to you. You know, it almost makes you paranoid because when you look at the story, David sent his men as an act of kindness, but these men were like, no, no, no. Like, they were so insecure to the point that they took the favor of David, they took the act of kindness from David and they twisted it into, oh, David is, trying to be sneaky. David is, sent his men to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it. When you're insecure, when you have insecure wounds, let's just say that, it distorts your view. It lies to you, right? Now you think everybody's against you. Oh, everybody's trying to plot against me. And that's the thing though. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there's a couple people that probably are against you, but the main person that's truly against you is the devil. That's true. But most of the time, people don't care. I hate to like burst your bubble. Most of the time, people don't care because people are putting that effort into themselves. Like, yeah, you may have one or few haters, but most of the time, and if people are talking about you, they're gonna talk about you today and tomorrow somebody else. If that's just the pattern that they have today, it's almost like celebrity gossip, right? People talk about celebrities the next day somebody else, but like no one's that invested in what you like. It's almost like having social anxiety. When you have social anxiety, when you go to a place with a lot of people, this anxiety lies to you and says everybody's judging you, everybody's looking at you, but like not to the extent your anxiety is lying to you about, right? And it makes you on defense mode. Now you can't trust everybody. Everybody's spying on you. Everybody's and sometimes there are people who actually want you to succeed. There are people who actually care about you. There are people who are checking in because they actually they're invested in what you're doing. They want to help. But because you have this wound of insecurity, this wound that's exposed, a lot of times you throw away relationships, you ruin friendships, you ruin a lot of things. Like, insecure wounds will ruin a lot of things. Like, the other day I was like, God, you know what? Like, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, there's some things that I'm not so confident in. Like, there's some things I do have confidence in, but there's some that I don't have. And I noticed too, like, because those are the things that I don't have confidence in, I noticed I started projecting my standards for those things on others because I'm not meeting those standards. And that is making me have it's making me insecure in this area. And God was like, okay, let's okay, let's figure it out. Let's do this. Let's figure it out. And and God has been like, just spending time with God, just figuring it out has helped me like gain confidence, has helped me gain that security in that area. Because one thing you realize is, one, like, God has a specific and unique path for you, right? And so your path, it looks different. Your path requires different things, different skills, it's a different timeline. And as long as God has revealed this to you, as long as God has blessed this path, as long as you and God are on the same page, then who cares what everybody else thinks? Who cares? Who cares what everybody else has going, like what they have going on? God, and the thing is too, like, the moment you start to realize how much God is invested in you, the moment you start to realize you know, how God has been paving the way for you, how he has been looking out for you, how he has been blessing you, you get to a point, it's like you don't care what other people think. Like, to the point it's like, I don't even care enough to lie to you. I don't even care enough to try to convince you of where I'm at. Like, it's okay. Like, if you don't believe it, it's cool. Me and God, we win this together. We already have a pact. We've already made an agreement. I know where I'm going. He knows where I'm going, regardless of whether you believe it or not. And that's when you start to have that confidence. That's when you just stop caring. And I feel like a lot of people think they don't care, but the fact that you're giving so much energy in, painting this picture, illustrating this image of this person that you're not, it's like, why? Why? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? And it's so crazy. I the other day I was like praying to God, and I'm just like, dang, like God is the only person I pray to. Like when I'm in trouble, I don't pray to my parents. I don't pray to my friends. I don't pray to any, like God is the only one I pray to. So at the end of the day, whatever he says is all that matters. Like I could care less what society has to say. I could care less what the devil has to say. He is the one who tells you those lies. He is the one behind anxiety. He is the one behind imposter syndrome. He is the enemy. But once you realize that when you're in deep trouble, the only person you turn to is God, that says enough. And if God has brought you this far with his method, with his way, if God has given you this much so far with his way and his methods, who cares what other people, what society, what the expectations are? All these rules of how you're supposed to do it. God has new rules for you. Like, you don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. You could do it your way. You could do it your way. Like, there's a lot of us who are walking around with open wounds of insecurities. And because the wounds are not healed, anything that people say, anything that people do, it stings. It hurts. And it's not because of them. It's not because of them. It's because you haven't healed. It's because that thing still bothers you. And you have not given it over to God. That's why. That's why it hurts. That's why when people talk about income, you kind of go like that's when people talk about marriage, relationships, it kind of, because it's still a sensitive spot. And until you give it over to God, until you get to that point where you build and that security, you build that confidence in where God has called you and where he is taking you, it's gonna be hard. Like, it's gonna be a very hard life. The thing about when you're insecure, it's it's hard. It's unpleasant to be around you. Like, when you're an insecure person, it's very unpleasant to be around you because everybody else has to walk on eggshells. Everyone else cannot say certain things because it might trigger you. Oh, I don't, and that's not fun. That's not fun. Like, it's like you're holding people hostage because they don't know how you're gonna react. They don't know if you're gonna see them as an enemy. And honestly, like, you have to heal those parts. You have to heal it. Ask yourself what triggers you, what makes you feel uncomfortable, what is it, and why do you feel that way? God, I feel this way because I don't trust you. I feel this way because I'm scared that it's not going to go right. Just be honest. Talk to God. Allow him to lead you in truth. And that's the thing too, like, even when it comes to like my salvation, I'm secure. Like, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect either. But one thing I will never let anybody is bully me in my, like, what. There was a time where I was having a hard time with like being in places that I shouldn't be in. Like, I don't know, like when you're young, you're trying to have fun, like you just adventurous. Like, that became something that I would compromise on a lot, and I'll be in places like, and when people would see me, because at the time too, like I was very vocal about like my relationship with God. And so when people would see me outside, they'll be like, kind of confused, like, I thought you don't do, whatever. But I would, like, that never like made me feel like, oh my gosh, like they saw me here. I would actually be like, hey, what's up? Because that was, how do I say it, I knew where I was going. I knew what God was doing in me. And this might not make sense to you, but I knew where I was going with my faith and journey, right? And I knew eventually I'll get to a point where I will hate coming to these places. I knew I'll get to a point where these places will disgust me. But at that time, where I was at a place where I knew it was wrong to go there, you know, but I still went there. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, because I know it's wrong to be here, I'm not going to be here. Now I'm at the point where it's like, I don't even want to go there. You can't even pay me enough to be there. But I knew what God was doing. Like, God, we literally made a healing plan, a sanctification plan. Like, so when people call me lacking, when people call me in these places, like I was not like I was not ashamed. I was not hiding because I knew what, you see what I'm saying? I knew what path I was on. And you may be like, well, what if what if you were sending the wrong message and being bad witness? At the end of the day, I'm not Jesus. I'm not you're no one's savior. Like, people should be looking to Jesus. People should not be looking to you to be saved. Like, I didn't hey, I did not die for no one's sin. Like, no one should be looking at me like, oh, and the thing is though, because here's the problem. The problem would have been if I was judging people. If I was being like, oh, you there, and I'm doing it. I wasn't doing that because I knew where I stood with God. You see, I knew where I was struggling at. So I just, and eventually I got to that place. So what am I trying to say? It's, you're secure in where God is taking you. You're secure in the plan that He has for you. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to hide. It's almost like the story of the lady that was about to be stoned by the men that found her committing adultery, and they dragged her out. They didn't even realize that that was part of the whole plan. Like, they didn't realize that day that was her last day doing that. They didn't realize that they were actually facilitating in her freedom. And it's just so crazy how God is out here orchestrating this life for you, this beautiful life for you. And you're out here like caring if you look good on that, or if how it looks to other people. Who cares how it looks to other people? When you're building something, you got to tear things down. When you're growing up, it's a mess. Like, people be like, oh, my 20s. It's not supposed to be pretty. When you're creating a foundation, it's not pretty. It's not, that's the point. But who cares? Who cares? You know where you're going. You know where you're going. You know where the destination is. You know what your life is. You know who you are. Anyways, I don't want to ramble on because I feel like I'm just gonna keep going. In conclusion, I don't know who needs to hear this, but the first thing I want you to do, I encourage you to do, is figure out what wounds of insecurities do you have. Like, what makes you insecure? What are you like sensitive about? What is it? Be honest and admit, like, what is it? And once you address what that is, bring it to God. Talk about it. Ask, why does this bother me? Why does this? And I'm telling you, the more questions you ask, the more answers you get. And the more, spend time in prayer. Meditate on what God tells you. Literally, just meditate. Think about it the whole day. Make it a practice. Normalize it. And eventually, the things that you're super insecure about, the things that, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, I used to be so insecure about my teeth. And my siblings used to ham me on it. Like, they knew I was insecure about it. They knew it. And they would be like when we're arguing, they would just pull that card. And it's like the argument would be done because they knew that would get me. And then one day I just stopped caring. Like, I just stopped. And I remember one time one of my siblings tried to use it on me. And I was like, I don't care. And they realized they couldn't use that no more because I didn't care. Like, I actually love my teeth now. And I love my smile. And I love it. Like, see, when you get to that point where you own, you're secure, you're confident, the devil he's limited. And the more secure you are and you show up to the world, it's like, I don't even think you realize how much power comes back into your hands.